Okay, here we are. We're live. And I think all of you that are with me know that I call this Freak Out Friday. So today's Fun Freak Out Friday, and it really is a Freak Out Friday because I've had back-to-back meetings all day. So welcome everyone. How is everybody doing? And if you're here watching, please just say, hey Liz, I'm here. And just let us know that we're coming through okay. We look good. We sound good. Everything's good. You can hear us. We've got a few people in here. And today I am with Paula Meyer.
Hi.
And I have known Paula a really, really long time. And Paula's been in the personal development, spiritual arena genre on more of the business end of things for several years. And now she is talking about a subject that most people don't want to talk about. And it's a much, much needed conversation to have. And you have recently written a book.
Yes.
And Paula talks about grief, about losing a loved one. Hey, Vicki, good to see you, Vicki. And Paula, do you want to share a little bit about your work and how it got you to the point that you're at and talk about your book title? Would you like to go ahead? I'm just going to let you kind of take over a little bit and talk about your work.
Sure. I'll put my book up here first. It's called Great Loss, Greater Love, The Art and Heart of Navigating Grief. And it's really about my story. I went on a year of travel after Gary died. And Gary's my husband. He had a pretty horrific 4-year battle with throat cancer. And it was devastating to go through it, the illness, the caregiving, the death, and of course, what happens after that. And I worked, I had a really busy job as an event director and traveled internationally. And what I ended up doing, even before Gary passed, was I spent all of my time either taking care of my work or taking care of him. And I didn't take any time really taking care of myself. And I had lots of clues from my body, clues from spirit that said, hey, you might want to take care of yourself. But I never did. And I guess I always kind of felt like as long as I was helping other people, somehow God or the universe or whatever was going to take care of me. And
do you mind sharing what exactly you were doing? Can I share what you were doing?
Sure.
So Paula was the head event director for Dr. Joe Dispenza for 8, 9, 10 million years.
Almost 12 years.
12 years, yes, because I worked very closely with you when you were
that's
with Dr. Joe Dispenza. Yeah. And so when all this happened, you were working more than full time.
Yeah.
Right.
And it, it was a very time consuming job, as well as all the time and energy consuming from Gary's illness. And what ended up happening is I, as I mentioned before, I had several cues from my body that things weren't quite right. Gary passed on June 1st, 2018. And on my 55th birthday, the following November 12th, I was in the hospital getting my appendix out. And still, I kind of got an idea that maybe something's here. But that happened on a Tuesday, and I was supposed to leave for the UK on a Thursday. And I'm like, I'm fine. I'll be fine. I'm gonna go. I'll be good. And of course,
oh my God, and they'll let you get on the plane. Wait a second.
that of course didn't happen. But we had another event coming up in a few weeks in Mexico, and so I immediately, instead of shifting my energy to me, I shifted it to that next event. And just I even sent my son home, or actually to the office, go get my laptop so I can work in the hospital. It was just crazy. But I've realized since then that the reason I did that was, on a deeper level, I knew what was coming. Gary was very ill. The first couple of years weren't so bad. He got some a treatment and was doing okay for a while. But when the cancer came back, I knew that it wasn't going to be long. And what most of us do is we just stuff that down. I just stuffed it down. And I really believe that the appendectomy was the result of that. I pushed all that energy down. And, for those of you who know Louise Hay's work, I checked my little book, the You Can Heal Your Life book. And appendicitis is all about fear of life, fear of, flow, all that kind of stuff. And I knew that that's what happened. That's what caused it. And it's interesting because Gary's illness, throat cancer, is all about expression. It's sitting right here in the fifth energy center, the fifth chakra. And him and I both had expression issues all of our lives, fear of speaking our voice. And so he knew what had caused it. And, we worked through things to help both of us through that. And so I've always known, I've been in this work for many years. I know that our thoughts create our reality, but I didn't really get it until it actually, hit me in the face and I'm in the hospital getting my appendix out. And so what happened is I went and did that last event and, in December, and I had some physical challenges there as well. And then I went home for Christmas and had a good long talk with Mom and decided, what, I need to put myself first. And it was a really hard decision because I loved traveling. I loved the work. I had a lot of great contacts and friends, and it was kind of it defined who I was at that point. So I just decided I've got to put myself first. So I resigned my job, I think on January 2nd, and my last day was March 1st. And then I went on a year of travel, and so that's what the book is about. The book is about my year of travel. It also has flashbacks in each chapter that talks about how I met Gary, and then his diagnosis to his death, and after that, including the year of COVID, because as soon as my year of travel ended, the COVID lockdowns began. And I had been in New York City for a women's travel fest in March 2020, came to Denver to visit family for a little bit, and it actually got sidelined here for the lockdown because Colorado lockdown, Washington lockdown. And the book kind of came about during the lockdowns because I started thinking to myself, the grief that the pandemic was bringing to everybody for, we lost our freedom. A lot of us, including myself, lost income. I was just starting my new business doing events. And of course, that all kind of went up in the air. So we're grieving all of that kind of stuff. And I realized that the mechanics of grief are very similar regardless of what happens. So what I had learned during that year of travel, and the book has many activities in each chapter to do to kind of help you through your grief, and many of the stuff that I did, those same things helped me to grieve during the pandemic and all the things that I had lost then. And so that's when I decided to write the book, because initially, when I thought about, would I want to be in the grief arena, I didn't, when I was just thinking on a very small scale of just widows, I just didn't want to be seen as, a sad and lonely widow.
Right, and that's what you're really talking about.
Right.
So you need to turn your volume up.
I don't.
Do you have Facebook open?
No, I don't have anything open.
Okay, because there's a major
Is that
echo.
Better?
Okay, yes, that's
okay.
Nope.
But then I can't hear you.
I'm hearing myself.
Oh, because then I can't hear you if I turn my volume down.
Okay.
Is this okay?
Can you guys? Can somebody tell me out there if you're hearing me double? If you're hearing an echo twice? Okay. How about if I talk now? Oh no, that's better. Okay, it's gone.
Okay.
Can you still hear me? All right. So
Yeah.
I just want to share, because we've got a couple of people out here, and I would love to hear from any of you who have lost someone really, close to you. It's been, emotional struggle. It's been really, really difficult. And I know that in here, we've got Deborah Leone. Interesting. She lost her husband a year later now. She has been just diagnosed with lymphedema.
Mm.
Rhonda's talking about she lost her son and brother, and this November, her mom. And I think what happens, okay, it's better, echo better. Okay, good. And Mary, you just lost your mom. I think what happens in my own personal experience is that, you're married for 42 years, Deborah.
Wow.
and this is probably very common, and I know this happened for me when I lost Ariel, my mom, and she was my business partner. It was this very surreal feeling that you cannot, it's almost like the mind has a challenge catching up to the reality of what's happened. And so you're racing to try and catch up to this thing that happened, and you can't like believe that it's happened. And so there's moments when I go and trying to pick, even now, years later, I pick up the phone to go and call her, and I'm like, oh, can't do that. And I know that I'm sure everybody's had that experience. But I love what you're sharing, Paula, about what happened to you physically, because it sounds like, Deborah, you might be experiencing the same thing in terms of, getting ill after you've lost your partner and probably not feeling like you even want to be here any longer. So can you share a little bit intimately about that process for those people who have
Yeah. One of the things, probably the biggest thing that I found out was that I had to put my attention to my body. I had to pay attention to any aches, pains, weird feelings, gut feelings, intuition, any of that kind of stuff. I had to start listening to it, because the body is our best dashboard of what's going on with us physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. And if we don't listen to it, we miss a lot of things. And that's what I was missing, because I would get aches and pains here and there. I even had blood tests that indicated there was a potential challenge. And I just kind of ignored it. But the thing is what I realized in the process is that, most of us don't treat ourselves, our body, like we would treat our good friends, like how I treat you, or how I treat my mom, or how I treat my friends. We talk to ourselves so negatively. There's a constant like looking in the mirror and, oh, this isn't right, that isn't right. This doesn't feel right. These clothes don't feel right. I don't look good. And we spend most of our relationship with our body being negative towards it. And the body is, really an amazing friend to us, because when I was stuffing all of my grief down, it took care of me. It protected me. The body does that. It protects us, but it can only protect us to a point. And, when those aches, those pains, those gut feelings is our body trying to get our attention that something is not right. And so one of the best things that I did for myself was, I've done kind of guided meditations that others have done, where you're laying down and you go through like from your toes all the way to your head, just to connect with your body. What I found for me is that anytime I lay down, I fall asleep. So I never got through that. Right. So what I started doing is that I would sit up and I would touch each part of my body, starting with my toes. And I would, touch it, tell it, thank it for all of the things it does for me. For example, like my feet, you take me to my destination, you help me walk, you support my body. Thank you for doing that. I love you and I hear you. And I would go through and do that on each part of my body, touching it, thanking it for all the things it does for me, all the way up to my head, and then outside of that. And that actual connection of touch to that part of the body helped me put my awareness and my attention there. And slowly over time, my body started trusting me more. And as I started listening to it, and now when things happen, my first thing is to stop and ask the body, okay, what do you need to tell me? What am I missing? What do I need to know? And when you start doing that, your body starts trusting you more, and it ends up just being so much easier. So I know, like right away, I know when things aren't right, and really that's just the connection,
But do you think this was because you weren't allowing yourself and taking the time to go through the grieving process?
I think that's part of it, yes, because I wasn't, even before Gary died, I was spending every waking moment either taking care of him or taking care of my work.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wasn't listening to my body. I wasn't doing anything for my body, other than sleeping and eating. And even though that wasn't all of that much. And, by the time that I think I lost like 30 pounds by the time he passed away, actually by the end of that year after he passed away. And, it's just, it's about not, the other thing is you have to allow yourself to feel those feelings. I think what a lot of us are afraid of is actually, what are those going to feel like? Are they going to take me under? But the thing is in order to move that energy out of the body, you have to acknowledge it. You have to feel it, and, cry, scream, punch a punching bag or whatever it takes to rid the body of that energy. And then you can bring in new energy to replace it in that area of the body. So I think one of the things that I found out, all of my years of self-development, you hear a lot about just raise your vibration, raise your energy. Don't think about that. But
right.
the problem with that is when you don't think about it, appendicitis happens, right? Because I'm not thinking about it. I'm just ignoring it, hoping that it's going to get better. And
trying to be positive and grieving and knowing all those things. I do want to hold on one second. I do want to read whoever wrote this, please tell me your name, because for some reason your name is showing up as Facebook user, and this is a very, very serious comment. So I want to address this. So please let me know who this is. This is after my husband's suicide. For months, I realized that I was holding my breath all the time. A year later, I traveled a great deal and started to feel alive again. It's been 10 years, and now I find this incredible anger in me. It was a very difficult and abusive marriage, and sometimes I think I'm nuts because I am mad at and fighting with a dead person. You're not nuts. In reality, I am angry at myself for taking the abuse and not leaving. It does a number on the body, but getting rid of that anger is proving to. Oh, it's Michelle. Michelle. That's, Michelle, I didn't know that. And Deborah is sharing, yes, work and husband, even my doctors kept telling me I need to take care of yourself, but I didn't listen. This is the time to listen.
Right.
This is just the time to start paying attention to your body signals, to what's going on with yourself. And I really, really understand, being in grief and having your life kind of fall apart and get shattered. And Paula, I love that you're doing this. And even more, I'm going to post this. Paula is doing an online summit with some other very, very special guests. I'm going to post the URL here. And for those of you if you're watching in Soulfest group or any of the groups, you can't see the link that I posted, but let me tell you, the website is www.gloomtobloomsummit.com. So that's gloom as in G as in great, LOOM, to bloom, B as in boy, BLOOM, summit.com. I just love that name. So it's gloom to bloom summit.com. And it's going, I'm so glad you're doing this, and you've got some really amazing guests on there, because I think that this is not something that's talked about enough. Yeah. People don't get enough support. We talk about the woo-woo angels. We talk about all this fun, magical stuff, but we don't talk about something that's going to hit all of us at some point in our lives, and it's loss. Right. And Denise Metzger is sharing that her 15-year-old daughter passed in 2008. Only even typing past doesn't align with my spirit or the message we get to share. Death doesn't have to be heavy, dark, sad, and tragic. There's a new way to speak, expect, see, and experience it. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And it's also and I think to Paula's point, is to also allowing you, and I'm sure you did, Denise, it's been quite some time for you, but still, I'm sure you feel the grief of it. But there is a time to allow ourselves to be in grief.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
The great thing about the summit is it's not just for people first of all, it's for women only, because I want to have a safe place for women, even though we have a few male speakers, because there's some great, they have some great stuff to share with us. But it's not just for death. So grief can come about in many ways: divorce, the ending of a job or a relationship, all of the stuff we went through in 2020 with COVID, the social unrest, the political stuff, the racist stuff. I mean, all of that stuff brings grief to us. And, all of us have experienced grief in one way or another many times throughout our lives. And the thing is that, it's so important to figure out how to move through it, because like you said earlier, Liz, none of us are immune from this. And as we get older, more of it's going to start coming around as people pass, as we retire. You retire, and even my leaving my job, there was a lot of grief around that, because I left a community that I had been around for 12 years. And so, there was all that, my questioning, should I have left? Did I do this? Or, am I doing things right? But the most important thing, I think, aside from body and connecting with your body, is really important. But the next thing that's super important is finding a community that you can connect with and thrive with. Because what I found, and traveling was really great for me in this respect, was that I'm trying to figure out who Paula without Gary is now. Most of my people I knew before Gary died know me as Paula and Gary. And a lot of times when you have that dynamic, people fall away because they don't know how to relate to you anymore. They're afraid of hurting your feelings or making you sad. So a lot of times they kind of fade away. And as you're trying to be the new, the Paula without Gary, sometimes they can, oh, that's not you. No, that won't work. You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't go traveling by yourself. That's not safe, kind of a thing. And but for me, traveling and going to new places, meeting new people, was where I could practice Paula without Gary. They didn't have, any kind of preconceived notions about who I was, so I could be whoever I wanted to be. And finding communities like yours with Celebrate Your Life. I mean, really, this all started with the first trip I took was to Phoenix. And I stayed with some friends for a few days before the International Women's Summit. And that was like an eye-opener for me, because I had spent so many years of my corporate life, from the time I was 18 all the way up to 54 at the time, mostly working in male-dominated communities or jobs, and wasn't around a lot of strong, powerful women. So to be in that audience with all of those amazing, powerful women, it's like, oh my God, where have I been? and I've met some really great people. A lot of the connections I've made since then started at this event. And it's a community where I can be me, and I can, you support me, this community supports me in being the new me. And I think that's critical. A lot of times we think, oh, I'll just grieve by myself. I'll be okay. I can do this. But really, we can't do it on our own. We need help. We need support. To see other women that are walking through it helps us, whatever things that they're doing, and share with us. I mean, that's what we need. And that's what my mission is to create, is grief is a tough subject. And it might be a little like, I don't know if I want to spend 4 days talking about grief, but it's not going to be all about sad stuff. The great thing about the summit is it's a garden theme, obviously, with Gloom to Bloom. So the first day is prepping my soil. So we're prepping our soil. I've got like 8 or 10 speakers on that day. They're sharing their grief story, all kinds of grief stories. And what they did to move through it. The next day is planting my seeds, and
wait a second, but that's the most important part, what you just shared, because we all have some, we just do, none of us gets out of this unscathed. So we all have those really devastating things that have happened to us. And some of you are sharing it here. Rhonda, you're sharing what happened to you. Valerie, Denise, all of you are sharing. Michelle, Mary, Deborah, Fatima, Alice. I mean, you're all sharing. Allison, I know that you're going through some pretty serious things right now. So it's not necessarily, we all know that these challenges happen, and shit hits the storm. Shit hits the fan, I mean. It's what you said right there is how people move through it.
Yeah.
And things that we can do as a community. And that's, I think, the important part of, I think, what all of your speakers are going to be sharing is how they moved through it, what has worked. Because we forget, like when I lost Ariel, I forgot, Paula, like all the things that I knew to do. And it took me a couple of years to get my footing again, because it was not just my mom, it was business. You know, what am I going to do now? There's my business partner.
Right.
So it takes a while, but if you have better tools, I think that's the key, and that's what you're going to get. I love the name of it, Bloom to Bloom.
Yeah. The other thing that I'm asking all of the speakers on that first day, and I'll share the same thing too, is how can I support, how could my family or community support me through this type of grief? Because, you know, especially in the US, people are so afraid, you know, to talk about grief. And, you know, for me, I remember being back at the office maybe a week or two after Gary died, and I actually sat down with the staff and I said, listen, don't be afraid to talk about your family around me, because I could tell that they were, you know, I don't even want to hurt Paula's feelings or whatever, because I want to hear it, you know, I want to still be, you know, involved in life and the living, and so it's okay to share that. So for me, it's like what I say to people is, it's okay to say Gary's name. It's okay to share memories about him. It's okay to ask me if I need help. It's okay to just listen. And a really great experience I had about a little over a year ago. A friend of mine's son passed away, and I knew that I needed to go see her, but I was afraid. And I'm just like, what am I going to say? But then I remembered how I was and what I needed, and I just, you know, I put together went to the store, got a bunch of different food and stuff for them. And then I just went, and even though I was afraid, I just sat with them and listened to them. And I think that is the most, you know, people grieving just want to have somebody to be with, to talk to. And I think that, you know, that's such an important thing to offer that to people that are grieving. And so all of these people, like, you know, life challenging illnesses, you know, what can people do that would help me get through my grieving process? A child dies from suicide. What can help me get through that process? My father died unexpectedly. How can you help me get through that? And I think that if we all have compassion, and we don't have to have the same experience, you know, we just need to know that we have to be there for our brothers and sisters as they're going through it, because it's, you know, it can be so isolating if you don't feel like you have support anywhere. So we'll start that first day is probably going to be the hardest day, I would guess, because we're all going to be going through that. But then the next day we'll start looking at ways that we can plant seeds, create new things. The third day is all about tending our garden. You know, once we have planted our seeds, what do? You know, we got to water, we got to fertilize, all that good stuff. And then the fourth day we're blooming. And part of the whole process is we're creating what I call a bloom blueprint. So when the event is finished on Sunday, we will have a 30-day plan to together go through this process. So the Saturday after the event is over, we'll be doing a 30-day bloom challenge in our private Facebook group. I'll be coming on every day and sharing what we're doing. You know, what's the activity for the day? What are we thinking about? And before we even start that, we pick a celebration. Like, what am I going to do when I finish my bloom blueprint. And one of the ladies in our group, Allison, which I think you know, Allison, her thing was, I'm going to walk across the Capilano suspension bridge. And she did. And she got it on video.
I know. She just did that.
It was so great. And so I that's what I want to create with this whole thing, is just a community. Grief doesn't have to be sad all of the time. And, the other important thing about grief is it doesn't ever go away. Like you said, Liz, something will happen. And, even, moving to Colorado, I just sold mine and Gary's home in Washington, moved to Colorado. And I thought I was, doing pretty okay, but I was out and about driving around the other day, and I didn't have my bearings where I was. And all of a sudden it all came back. It's like anger, Gary, why is this happening? But the thing is if you practice the tools, it's not as bad each time. You learn how to navigate through them. Some days are going to be harder than others. But if your goal is to take a step forward every day and know that you still deserve to have joy every day, that there's still purpose in your life. Maybe you don't know what it is, but you can find it. And we'll talk a little bit about that during the summit. But there is a way through and beyond it. And yeah, life is never going to be the same. But the one thing that I always like to share with people is, what's the gift? And I know sometimes that's the hardest thing to think about is, well, how can there be a gift in anything? But I would challenge anybody to look at any tragedy that they've gone through and not find a gift of something. For me, there's a lot of little things I've learned, being a homeowner that I never had to do before. So I'm proud that I can do those kinds of things now. Now I can travel and not be mad seeing retired people, retired couples enjoying themselves. And that used to really make me angry. And now I look at them and it's just like, oh, I'm so happy that they're experiencing that. And I did experience some of that. But the biggest thing for me is this, this is the biggest gift. Being able to express myself for someone that had challenges with that all my life. To be able to share Gary's story. I'm sharing his story in this book as well. He had always wanted to write a book and he never did. Even before I met him, he had an amazing, miraculous healing. And so I share about that in the book. So I feel like this is, me expressing for both of us. And so that's the gift for me. The gift for me is all the women I've met since his death. And all of these things would never have happened if he were still alive. And that's not to, diminish that at all, but it's important to find the gifts in everything. There's a pearl of wisdom in everything that happens. And that's how you move through it, I think, is you got to look for those things. You got to ask those questions and be willing to, and not feel guilty about it, not feel guilty that, I'm happy now. There's no reason to feel guilty about being happy.
That's a really, really tough one. Vicki just shared that her mom transitioned in August and she thinks about her almost every day. That's pretty new for you, Vicki. That's really, really new. And someone else shared, what a beautiful tribute to your husband. Yeah. Yes. And you're right. It's a beautiful gift of expressing your love for him, to put him in the book. I think for so many of us and so many of you sharing here, I think this summit would really be amazing for you. I'm going to post the URL again in case it hasn't shown up for you, but it's, I have to say it slowly, because when you first told me the name, I was like, what? I don't get it. It's gloomtobloomsummit.com. So let me go ahead and put it on here. Gloom meaning with a G as in great.
Yeah.
And then bloom with a B. So it's Gloom to Bloom Summit. And it's 4 days of great speakers. Fatima just shared she lost her best friend and mother in February 2020 to bone cancer. Although it was very painful, it was an honor to be by her side as she transitioned. I know I've done that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is quite an honor. It's like this very, very profound experience and deeply, deeply sad experience at the same time.
Yeah. I had that pleasure and the honor of experiencing Gary Gary's passing as well.
Right.
And I share that in the book. There was an amazing point of time where he was pretty much gone, right? Unconscious. And then he came to for like 26 hours straight. And he was like a younger version of himself. And it was so amazing. And his brother was with me. And I really feel like that was a gift from him in spirit for us to realize that we're not our bodies. Wow. He was speaking to us like I felt like he was like a young teenager, and he was moving around. By the time he passed, he had the big tumor was here. It was sticking out of his neck, and he could hardly move any of this because, all the cancer was on this side. But when he came to during this 26 hours, you wouldn't know that he had any challenges. He was moving around. He was trying to stand up in his chair, and he was talking and doing all this thing. But it was a really beautiful experience. And I share some of the things he said to me and some of the things he did. And, I'm blessed that I got the chance to say goodbye to him. And I know a lot of people don't get that. But when we knew he was passing, we got to, say what we needed to say. And I even asked him, I'll be looking for signs. So, make sure that you send me some signs. And I get signs all the time. And the one lady who mentioned she thinks about her mom every day. I think about Gary every day because I talk to him every day. I mean, he's like, I still feel like he's here, and he is in spirit. Right. And I'll ask him questions. What do you think about this?
You continue the conversation.
Yeah.
The conversation for 11 years now. I've just continued the conversation. Yeah. I still talk to my. Did you ever met? I think you must have met my mom.
No, I never did.
On the phone, I know you guys must have. Like, you knew who she was because we've been working with you guys for such a long time. Wait a second, you didn't. Oh no, yeah. Okay, we'll talk about that later. Anyway,
maybe on the phone, but I never met her in person. It seemed like it was always you or one of your staff that I talked to, but I've seen video of her, and she was just such a bright light, just like you.
So many of you are sharing. Rhonda, Rhonda. She said that she was blessed to be with her son when he was removed from life support. At the same time, she still has nightmares watching what he went through from sepsis shock.
Yeah.
I really
that was one of the hardest things that I had to get through. I know this sounds really weird, but after he passed, I took pictures of his body. I don't know why, I just did. And the challenge with that is that they were sitting in my camera roll. So every time I flipped through it, trying to find something, I'd see that, and it would like bring it all back. And it was like kind of like when you see somebody go through that, such a physical change like that, it's kind of almost like PTSD. You see that image. And so the hardest part for me was to get that image out of my head. And I knew that I wanted to see him as his most vibrant self that I knew him when I first met him. And so that was the hardest part. And I've actually, part of the book, well, not part of the book, but they'll be released the same time the book is released on Tuesday, are a couple meditations I created. And one of them was for someone who's lost someone through death. And I created it because it was for me to help see him a different way. And that's how that meditation came about. So I totally
hold the book up again.
Yeah.
Is the book available on Amazon?
It will be on. I'm actually launching on the 13th. So Tuesday, April 13th, I'm going to have in my Facebook group 2 live launch parties at 10 a.m. Pacific and 6 p.m. Pacific. And on that day, you'll be able to download a free Kindle version of the book. So I can
posted that for all of you. It's Great Loss, Greater Love by Paula Meyer. So
it's on Amazon right now, and you can go get it now if you want. But heck, why wait? Why not wait until Tuesday and get a free copy? So or the Kindle version. Yeah.
Go support.
Yeah.
Support everybody.
Yeah. I also have created too, just really quickly, are these. It's called Great Loss, Greater Love, and it's a grief card deck. And this is specifically for people that have lost a loved one. And how I created this, I forgot to say that during the book, this little journal, journal is actually Gary's journal. And he wrote, I got this for him in London in 2016, and he wrote in the first 32 pages is his writing. And so I took it with me and I journaled. And as I was looking back on what he had written and looking at his other journals, I found a lot of really great things he wrote to himself. So every chapter starts with a quote from his journal. And while I was researching all of his journals, I found a small box of slides. Do you remember the old slides that you used to put?
Yes.
So he had, back in the day before I knew him, he was into like nature photography, like amateur photography. And so this card deck, I found like 57 different images. I sent him to a company that created high res images, and there's 42 cards in the deck. Some of them are pictures from my year of travel, and some are pictures of his, and then they have his and my quotes. So the idea is you just kind of like pull a card, and that's your card for the day or the week.
Go ahead and lay them out. Drop into something, and then Paula's going to pull a couple of cards for all of us right now.
I want it before I do that. I want to share one card that this is when I went on my first trip. This is actually Taliesin, Frank Lloyd Wright's home in Phoenix. Yes. So this is one of the pictures, and it says, "It's okay to move forward. I will never forget my loved one." So I picked pictures that I liked, and I matched the quotes to the picture. And so some are Gary's. There's like 16 of his pictures, and the rest are mine. Like this was a picture I took when right before I left for Phoenix. This little frog was in the lawn, and I picked him up and held him in my hand. And I just knew that was a good omen for my travel coming up. All right, so I'll pick a card for us today.
Oh, this is beautiful.
It's this one here.
And how can people get the cards?
Joy and humor are abundant.
Joy and humor are abundant. Oh, I love that.
This was a picture I took in Florida, and it was at a botanical garden thing. So you see all the flamingos in the background and all those beautiful trumpet flowers.
Oh,
so that's it. So the cards are on my website now. They're available on my website.
What is your website, Paula Meyer?
My website is gpeventworks.com. So it's G like Gary, P like Paula, eventworks with an X.com. And
wait a minute, hold on a second. gpeventworks.com.
So worx.com.
Here we go. Okay.
You go to the shop, you'll see the grief card deck there.
This is actually the best place to look for everything. So here we go.
Yeah.
There's the URL. So it's G as in Gary, P as in Paula, eventworks with an X.com. So it's gpeventworks.com.
Right.
That's fantastic. See, I didn't even know that. This is fabulous.
Yeah, they just came out very recently. So I'm just really excited about it.
Yeah, you guys, it's got all the information on there. And there's so many of you that I'm reading your comments. I highly, highly recommend you attend the summit, because it's needed so much right now, no matter what your loss is, no matter what the challenges. I know some of you shared that you're going through some deep challenges right now. Highly recommend it. You'll get the support that you need. Paula, thank you so much for being with me today on Fun Freak Out Friday with Liz.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. I'm so grateful to be here. And I just love this community. This has been a real help for me moving through this. And like I said, community is so important. So you're doing a great service to the world by all the different things you offer. And I'm looking forward to Scamania.
Scamania. We're going to go back to Scamania. Okay,
That's
so
so
Susan, what is the Facebook page where you can get the free Kindle? You know what? If you just go to Paula's website.
Yeah, if you go to the website, if you scroll down just a little bit, you'll see my book.
Right there.
And there's a link there that'll connect you to the Facebook page. So just go there and, follow it. And then I'll be live on the 13th at 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. Pacific.
You know what, Valerie, we're running out of time, but if you go to the, if you go to the Gloom to Bloom webpage, you have the schedule on the webpage, Paula, for the summit?
It's got the dates. I don't think it's got the times, but it has the dates. It's April 22 to 25, roughly 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Pacific time each day.
Okay.
And also at the very top of my website, there's a little thing that says, "Are you a woman drowning in grief?" If you click on that link, it'll take you to another group. It's my WOW group, Women of Worth. And it's for women going through all kinds of grief. It's a group where we can communicate and connect. And so lots of different things that I'm offering to help. I just want to help. Grief is no fun, but it is survivable and it is thrivable. So we
survivable and thrivable. Yes. Yeah. All right.
Thank you. Great life.
Yes. Thank you all so much for joining us. And Paula, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. All right, everybody. We will see you soon. Have a really good
Bye.
day.